so I can see if it's coming through. If you don't mind, somebody write a comment so I can get myself sort of sorted out here. Sorry, guys. Just okay. Thank you, Justin. All right, so I see it. All right, good. So now I can say, all right, fair enough. So I can get myself sorted out here. Is it okay? Can you see me all right with this? Thank you, Justin. All right, so I see it. Because I'm now on the Facebook Live directly. So obviously I have to hope it's going well, because I know that usually it's not that good. All right, good. So now I can say, all right, fair enough. So I can get myself. Good. And now I'm on YouTube as well. So we are now streaming. All right. Well, we got 7 people on board, and I'd like to see that we get a few more numbers before I continue. 9. That's good. If there's any questions I can answer while I'm waiting for some people, by all means, post some questions. How is everyone doing that's here tonight so far? Doing well. Hi, Rose. How are you? Easter's just around the corner. This usually means, don't laugh at me, what, Fagoli, yeah, and sweets. I think that this is the time right now where people are not completely focused on their health and their wellness, because all that junk food coming in the door. So, but I assume that right after Easter, people will be getting ready for summer, and that will be good. Hey, Adrian, how's it going? How's the plan treating you? You're enjoying the weekends with the refeeds? Hi, Stacy. 13 people. Let's try to bring that number up a bit. You know, keep it not very long, because unfortunately, as I said, and I just sort of was saying, I spent the last 20 something weeks really preparing really hard for this show, and the last 3 days it's the most difficult for me, not to mention the fact that I'm going to the toilet every 10 minutes, so that becomes difficult. But I'm drinking about 6 to 8 liters of water a day, so it's in and out. But also, the fact that, the mind suffers, and that's always a challenge. Interestingly enough, people that do these really strict calorie reduced diets, or let's say, for example, follow a meal plan and they forget to eat, and they maybe have they don't have breakfast, they don't have lunch, they just have a dinner. You get used to that kind of living, but you don't realize how that really affects your mind. and your moods and the way you are with other people and so on and so forth. So I think we're having some difficulties there. Hey, Justin. But you know, it's, you know, for myself, you know, I'm pretty level-headed all the way through, and I can tell you right now that following a very stringent meal plan, you know, lacking in carbohydrates, as people sometimes do. It's time for a meal. As people sometimes do, they don't realize how much it affects them, but it really is it can be a very big detriment to someone's health and obviously someone's mentality, their moods, the way they act around other people and such. So the moral of the point, I guess, is to make sure you're eating, because eating is very important. As I said, I'm not going to keep it very long. I was hoping that I'd see some questions, sort of warm me up, get my brain kind of warm, but I don't see any questions. I sort of wanted to just kind of, let's leave it at this. I kind of wanted to make a point this evening. It's very difficult when you're talking all by yourself, you know. Sometimes these points get better. They come across better when you're interacting with people verbally. But one of the things that I wanted to mention, and I think it's probably very important, hopefully for the 14 people that are here, is about self-sabotage. And it happens quite often with people, this self-sabotage. And what self-sabotage is, if I have to explain it, is the ability to talk yourself out, or to break yourself down, or take yourself out of a situation that is good for you. So, you know, we start to get into the situation where we're manipulating or playing a mind game with ourselves in the end, to not accomplish what it is that we want, even though we say that we want to accomplish something. I think the strongest ally that you have to being successful is your mind. But I guess it would be pretty obvious to say that not everyone has, I think everyone has the same abilities if they were to work it, but I don't think I don't think everyone uses their mind, their vision, their focus in a way that actually makes them always as successful as they could be. I can probably use an athlete as an example. Athletes are, especially elite athletes, it's like cream that rises to the top of the milk, you know, like if you've ever seen milk from the farm, you would notice that, you know, 95% of it is milk, and at the very top is cream. And that's the richest, the best part of the milk. It's the sweetest part. It's the most sought after part of the milk. You know, when it comes to elite athletes, for example, elite business people, whatever, to be the best, you have to rise through adversity and get to the very top of your level and get to the top of your game. And I think that unfortunately with a lot of people, they start out wanting to accomplish something, and somehow their mind starts to play some kind of game, and they give into that game, they give into themselves, and they ultimately self-sabotage. They basically cut their own tree down. You know, they chop away at themselves. Whether it's negative talk, whether it's you know, putting themselves in harm's way, putting themselves in temptation's way. You know, for example, I guess I could say if you're, well, I'll give you an example. I'm doing this show, so if you go through the fridge, you won't find anything in the fridge aside from eggs and you know, some veg and some meat. So there's nothing in there that has the potential to take me off track. Now, I do that purposefully because I want to be successful, and I need to, and I also know that I'm human, and I know that there are temptations. So by putting the temptations in my way, that isn't in fact self-sabotaging, because I'm actually setting myself up to struggle. Um, so for the most part, throughout this entire prep, I would have no food near me whatsoever that was decent. Because if in a moment of, feeling desperate or frustrated or angry or alone or emotional or whatever the case would be, sometimes it's all too easy to turn towards something that inevitably would take us out of the situation that we're trying to accomplish, then put in instead guilt feelings and negative feelings, and ultimately this is going to be a detriment to us because we won't succeed. Um, and how does that relate here? First of all, is there anybody out there? Because I feel like I'm talking to myself because I don't even actually see anything going on whatsoever. Is there any activity on this at all? Um, how it relates to what this business is and what this business is about. And I think where people make the big mistake, there's a lot of businesses out there that, provide a service. But what is most important is providing, what's most important is providing a clear path to being successful. And some of the things that are the most important is actually what it is that I'm talking about right now. This program is designed to educate and to empower an individual, not so much to look good, but to discover the importance of why you should take care of yourself, of why you should think about what it is that you're doing, and not once a week or once a month, but every single day, and more than every single day throughout the day, and why it's important to have that mindset grow stronger all the time so that you as an individual can be stronger. So in that sense, you want to make sure that you're putting your best foot forward. And in the 31 years that we've been doing this, our motive has been to ensure that you don't self-sabotage. We never want to see someone walk in the door who basically puts their hand up and says, I have a question, and then we don't answer that question. And that's sort of like a metaphor. We don't ever want someone to walk in the door and not get what they want. I thoroughly believe that every single person that walks in the door, if they just listen and if they just follow, now there may be circumstances obviously where you have to work things through because not everything is perfect, but if you listen and if you follow and if you're committed and you're dedicated and you're resilient to what it is that you want, it would be literally impossible to fail. But that being said, and a lot of times I get this sort of frustrating feeling, and I just say to people, listen, just stop thinking and just listen to me, just do what I'm telling you to do, and trust me, because if you do what I'm telling you to do, you'll succeed. Because if you do what I'm telling you to do, you'll succeed. I know, because I've walked this path a million times before, so I know that it works. But what I would be facing, or the adversity that I'm facing, is I'm facing a person in front of me who has their own mindset and their own will and their own strength inside their mind, their own resolve, their own determination, their own commitment levels, their own perseverance, their own resilience. There's a whole lot of adjectives that would describe what will make a person successful and what won't make a person successful. And everyone has the potential to be successful. It's just that not everyone utilizes the power within themselves to be successful. So, when we see people walking in the door, we really want everyone to succeed. We really want everyone to succeed. I mean, personally speaking, if I speak to anyone in a private consultation, I want to give the very best information. It is not generic, it is specific to that person. I know that my staff, for the most part, the staff that I have right now for sure, care. And so they give the very best of themselves to ensure that you have the best for yourself. Obviously, we can't do what it takes to make you successful. You have to do that, but we can provide sort of a means or support or things of this nature. But this is ultimately important. And to develop that strength or that character comes down to you. And as I said, most people have a tendency, unfortunately, to self-sabotage themselves. And you know it because there's a million excuses on why they can't do something. I can't do something, and you can say what you like. Now you can, if this frustrates you or whatever, you can say what you like. I mean, you have an opinion, I have an opinion as well. People can say, well, I have children, so I can't do this. People say I have a job, so I can't do this. People say, I have family to take care of, I have parents to take care of, I'm going to school, this is why. There's a lot of excuses as to why someone ultimately starts something and doesn't see it through and doesn't finish it. And I wish I could say that every single person that walked in the door finished the program successfully. But the fact of the matter is that those that did not finish successfully somehow didn't follow. And somehow they sabotaged themselves. They took themselves out of the game. And then, of course, not wanting to totally accept that it would be ultimately their responsibility, as everything ultimately comes down to our own self. They might look to someone else and say, well, it's, your fault. When in fact it's not. It's someone else's fault. It's not real. I don't even want to say it's a fault. I don't want to put my finger on it and say it's your fault. But success is going to come down to yourself and what it is that you really, really want. I can look at this from many facets. I can look at this, as I said, as an elite athlete, saying, I'm 50 years old and I want to compete. I want to train hard. I want to win a show. And I'm going to do that while running a business, while having the stress of whatever is happening personally in my life, business-wise, financially, whatever the case is. There's a huge host of reasons, and I posted this the other day, where I could have easily, because of the stress that I've gone under, could have easily quit, and people would have said, well, we understand. But I wouldn't have understood. That's an easy way out. Well, we would understand. We would understand because we do it. We walk away from things, but I wouldn't understand. I wouldn't be able to live with myself. But that's when it comes to, say, me and my athletic endeavors. But it's not just about athletic. What about growing up through adversity? What about, being the on the receiving end of negative words from, parents saying, you can't do this, or you can't do that, or you're not good enough, or what's wrong with you, or what about growing up, in a household where no one really cared about providing proper education when it came to eating well, or pushing you to be active and going outside and playing and things of that nature. So you grew up sitting inside, you didn't do much, you weren't active, you ate as your parents ate, now you're overweight, then you get bullied at school, you get put down, you get insulted. Instead of rising above that and challenging yourself to get out of that situation, sometimes you do the opposite. You sort of wallow in it, you try to disappear from it, you get further into a negative situation. Here you are 20, 30 years later, you're still feeling the effects of it, you're still feeling bad about it. You're still talking about the history, the past, the memories that you went through. You say, but I have a reason to. This was very hurtful for me. It was hard for me, easier said than done to come out of it. And unfortunately to me, and maybe I take this stance, maybe I take it a little bit too strong, but I don't believe that those are things that we should be saying. I don't believe that these are excuses that we should be believing ourselves. As I said, that to me is self-sabotage. When we overcome the things from our past to succeed, we are only fulfilling our own obligation and our own desires to do what it is that we want to do. But when we succumb to the pressures and the past and the histories and the memories and the feelings, we're empowering anyone who put those things into us. We're giving them all this power, whether they even know it or they don't know it, to see us fail. I mean, a past relationship might want to see you fail because they're bitter. So if moving forward, you allow the negativity of a past relationship to let you, fail, if those reasons become your excuse to get out and ultimately self-sabotage yourself and put yourself down and take yourself out of the game, you've actually allowed the ex person to win, to sit back and laugh and say, I still have power over them. This doesn't only apply to ex-relationships or ex-wives or ex-husbands. It can apply to families and things and people in all walks of life. Friends. I mean, you may have friends that you've had for 10 years that you realize now have always been talking behind your back, and now you're disgusted and you're upset and you're frustrated and you feel you can't trust anybody, and so now you move forward in life more protective and fearful and much more afraid to take a step out on that ledge. This is self-sabotage. I don't know if you do this or you don't do this, but do you take account of your life every day? Do you stop to consider that this is your life? You have one life. And what are you going to do with that one life? What is it that you want to accomplish with that one life? Do you want to sit back and talk about all the things that you wish you could have done? Or do you want to sit back at the very end and say, look at all that I have done? And the distinct difference is one being accomplishing and one not accomplishing, one dreaming about it and one actually doing it. And dreams don't become realities by wishful thinking. They become realities by hard work. There's no excuses. There's no excuses for someone to be unhealthy. There's no excuses to get caught up in the world that we live in, where we've become so brainwashed and so detached that we accept the fact and so what's the point of eating well? What's the point of living well? What's the point? There's no point. To say, well, I only live once, so, I might as well go out with a bang, to eat crap, to not be active, to not go after your dreams because you only live once, is looking at it from my perspective on the wrong side. Instead of saying, why bother? Why not? I mean, if you only live once, you might as well go all in. You might as well push yourself to such great lengths to accomplish all that you can. I grew up, people know my story, and there's only 15 people here, so it's not like it's going to be spread wild. But, I grew up, in 24 different foster homes. So this means I never had any family. And I was on my own at the latter age of 15 years old. Um, I didn't have anything, but I always felt like, I mean, obviously I had negativity in my life, and I always, I mean, I had an excuse to become anything: a drug dealer, alcoholic, a drug abuser. I could have become a murderer. I could be in the streets right now, living, doing nothing, wasted away. I could have accomplished basically nothing, and had a justifiable reason to do so. Um, but adversity for me has always been something that I always wanted to overcome. Now, up that way, I made the decision that I would overcome all the negatives by putting more effort into myself and being the best that I could be. Truly, that's exactly what I said. So I dreamed big, dreamed of being a professional football player, dreamed of, being on stage competing in bodybuilding. I dreamed of playing all these different sports. I did, all of these things. And for someone who went through so much, I went out and did 10 times more than I ever went through. I played every sport: soccer, football, baseball, basketball, track and field, swimming, gymnastics, player. Obviously bodybuilding was a big thing for me. I walked away from the sport just so that I could race motorcycles and mini motard bikes and race pedal bikes, like the Tour de France style. Ride the velodrome, climb mountains, water ski, so that I knew that when I looked back on my life at the tapestry on the wall and I saw my life sort of being played out, it wasn't, this is John. John had an abusive upbringing. It was a horrible life. Let's all feel sorry for him. And then he accomplished nothing, but we all understand why. And everything in his life has been, shit. But we look what happened to him when he was younger. I mean, the foundation of his life only perpetuates negativity throughout this person's life. Um, not a chance, not a chance. So self-sabotage was not something that I succumbed to. Doesn't mean it didn't happen, because it did happen. It happened on occasions, but it is not prevalent, and it is not the main focus of my life. So I don't use self-sabotage as an excuse. I don't take myself out of things as much as I possibly can. I do the opposite, and every once in a while I do succumb to, negative things and so on and so forth. But I have built a history now where I know that no matter what I say I'm going to do, I will do. And this is so important, kind of coming back full circle. This is so important for every single person who is watching today. The importance is that ultimately, in the very end of it all, your success is going to be based on solely a decision. And let's not even use the word success. The fulfillment of your life is going to be based on your decisions. I can't help that, Justin, because I'm using the Facebook. I'm straight wired, and I'm on internet, because both the iPad and iPhone won't take the Wi-Fi. So it's the way it's going to be, unfortunately. We only have 10 people, so I'm not that interesting, obviously. So yeah, don't let self-sabotage rule your life. Obviously, I think that this is practice. I think it's a decision that needs to be made every single day, that you're going to be the very best that you can be. I think that making these decisions happens more than once in the day. And I believe that you can't ever have a quitting attitude. If you're struggling with weight loss and you're not following, then you're not really struggling with weight loss, or fat loss, as I would want to say it. You're not really struggling because you're not really following. So if you're following and you're doing everything as you should, It's a different story. Then you're making an effort, and then there's another thing to look at. But don't sell yourself short in life, and don't sell yourself short when it comes to being successful. And do not let your mind play games with you and ultimately control your future by manipulating you and taking you out of situations. You have to put yourself first. You have to believe in yourself. You have to want whatever it is that you want. I don't care to elaborate on what it is that you want, because it's not for me to decide. But it's for you to decide what is important to you. And what is important to you, you have to make sure that you're willing to do whatever it takes to get it done. And no matter what, if I use this analogy 1,000 times, I've done it. But if you've ever climbed a mountain, there's not a lot of mountains in this country, but at home in Canada, where I'm from, British Columbia, we're full of mountains. Mountain, and you're looking at what path you want to take, and you look up and you realize that the climb is 6,000 feet, which is a fair climb. You have to make the decision that you want to get to the top. You have to want to the top, and then you have to make the decision to do what it takes to get to the top, regardless of the circumstances. And climbing to the top is going to be filled with lots of things. You may fall down, you may scrape your knees, you might be, hit by bushes and falling rock, and who knows, who cares, whatever. This is obstacles. But if you're determined, when you get to the very top, the view that you see and the feeling of accomplishment cannot be compared to anything that it took to get up that mountain. So, this is where they say the end justifies the means, because the very end of it all, there's such a value in what it is that you've experienced that it takes away all the negative of climbing. Then when you go down the mountain, of course, it's when you go down the mountain, then of course it's much quicker and much easier. And that's always the easiest part, going back down. But that's because you've accomplished it and you've overcome it. So anyway, don't self-sabotage. It's very important. I apologize for the internet. It's not my fault, unfortunately, that Facebook sucks when it's about going live, and that's why I like this, because I'm actually on Facebook's live on a laptop. Facebook on live on from a mobile is much different, and on the mobile it's seamless and it's clearer and the whole 9 yards. But unfortunately, as I said, these things are cutting out, and I couldn't figure them out. So this is the way it had to be. So I apologize if it was sketchy, just as well. That's just unfortunately the way things go. I'm off this week. The show is on the weekend, and then I'm going away for a week break, and then I will be back in the office, I think on the 29th, and back